one of the things to really kind of consider with with where we're at, right? I would say in regards to fandom and entertainment, there is a movie announcement today that I thought was kind of interesting. A movie announcement that I wasn't expecting, and really for like good reason, because it doesn't make any sense to me. That of course is this one here. Paramount is now setting Noah Hawley to write and direct a Star Trek fan film. Or Star Trek, not fan film. It's a Star Trek film, but a Star Trek film nonetheless. Noah Hawley is doing this. And this is a guy that, if you are familiar with the Fargo television series, you are familiar with this dude's work. And apparently it's really good. And it says here that Paramount is in final talks with Noah Hawley to write and direct a Star Wars film through his 26 Keys production banner, and he will produce, along with J.J. Abrams, and his Bad Robot banner. Saying, I don't have too much more to report on the film, but my understanding is that Hawley will helm the fourth film in this iteration of the venerable franchise, with the Enterprise crew led by Pine, Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana, Simon Pegg, and Carl Urban. And that is awesome. That's awesome. Because we don't really know what the hell has been going on with Star Wars now for a long time. Sorry, Star Trek, not Star Wars. We were just talking about Star Wars. But Star Trek. We don't know. We haven't known what's been going on. But now we know. Now we have an idea. Now, if you want to know more or less what he's done, he did Legion, which is really well regarded amongst X-Men fans. He's also the producer, writer, director, and showrunner on Fargo. And he's currently in production on a fourth season, which stars Chris Rock. And so he is, again, heavily invested in this type of deeper, darker storytelling. But he's bringing that sensibility, if you want to call it quote-unquote sensibility, he's bringing that to Star Trek, which is interesting, considering that his feature directorial debut is Lucy in the Sky, which just came out, or it's on its way out, and it's not getting that great of reviews. It's a weird story. It's the one about the female astronaut that falls in love with another male astronaut, and she gets kind of screwed over. So she like travels from like Texas to Florida, wears diapers, and tries to kill him, or wanted. He's alive. It didn't happen, but it was a crazy story, and they got Natalie Portman to play Lucy. I don't know. I don't know if I'd make that a story that I want to tell. I mean, it's an interesting story, but really, like Jodi Arias is a lot more interesting. Anyway, now he goes on to talk about here a bit more about his career on Bones, but also just to be on the up and upside here. They are saying here that the studio is apparently still working on that Quentin Tarantino film that we've been hearing about. But they're calling it now a Star Trek spinoff. Notice how it's called a Star Trek spinoff. Because Tarantino's being eyed to direct, has been working on it with Abrams. Really? Now that is a new revelation, because we haven't heard that. That Quentin Tarantino has been working on a Star Trek spinoff with J.J. Abrams. That is new. And this one would likely carry an R rating, and it's going to be written by the Revenant scribe Mark L. Smith. And that is, again, fascinating, right? It is. It's fascinating. So when I talked about the idea of Star Trek 4 being woke no more, this is what I'm talking about here. This is an article that popped up a little over a year ago. And when news broke that Star Trek 4 was going to hire S.J. Clarkson to become the first female director in the franchise's history. Now, for one, let me just quickly point out and say, I don't think a female director is a bad thing. And I was actually kind of interested to see what she was going to bring to the table. My question then becomes, how the hell did this whole thing fall the hell apart? That's what I don't get. That's what I don't know. And I find it to be interesting. So let's look at here and see what they were saying over a year ago. S.J. Clarkson has been tapped to direct Star Trek 4, making it the first female to helm a film in the Star Trek universe. Paramount Pictures had no comment. The studio announced at CinemaCon in Vegas that it was planning a fourth movie with Chris Hemsworth, who appeared as Chris Pine's father in 2009 Star Trek. Zachary Quinto set to return. Paramount is developing another Star Trek film from J.J. Abrams and Quentin Tarantino. Okay, so that was talked about even back then. See, I never saw this. No one ever associated this, by the way. No one ever associated the Tarantino R-rated Star Trek movie with being in any way, in shape or form connected to J.J. Abrams. Like, this is never talked about. So if it's out there, I'm now just learning it, which For a person who's supposed to talk about the news and know what the hell's going on, trust me, I kind of feel like I've made a few mistakes here. Now, it does go on to say here that the details are scarce, but a key plot point sees Pine's character running into his father in a time travel ploy. Look, we know, okay, like we know that they wanted to do that, right? We know that they really wanted to build up the time travel aspect, right? They announced this movie before the release of Star Trek Beyond in 2016. They announced it was going to have Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth and that it was going to be a time travel thing to get people hyped up, obviously, for Star Trek Beyond, which failed to do as well as it could have done in the box office. I really think that it failed to do as well as it could have done, which is unfortunate because Star Trek Beyond is not a bad movie. A lot of people, I think, like it more than Star Trek Into Darkness. So there's that. But what we know from this, what we can glean from this, is that the direction that Star Trek is going is, if you want my honest opinion, it's probably going more towards the Star Trek Discovery route. Now, before many of you out there clutch your pearls and faint on the nearest couch, it's not necessarily a horrible idea. The concept of Discovery is not the thing that fans or I should say, not fans, hate about the show. It's a lot of the characters and the choices and things like that. Especially Alex Kurtzman as a writer, they ain't a fan. So when you have a situation like that, when you have a situation where you've got a guy who's known for doing dark and very character-driven pieces, Legion's insanely character-driven, Fargo is character-driven, but also very dark and twisted. He's taking on his first, theatrical movie as a movie about a woman who plots to kill a man who scorned her. And she goes about it in a crazy enough way, and this was a true story. He's attracted to the darkness. He wants to, and this is a terrible pun, to take Star Trek into darkness. Yeah, I'm a father or two. I own that joke. Okay? Trademark, copyright. If you use it, you owe me $5, which you guys can super chat to me right now if you'd like. That being said, I want to see where this goes. I do. I want to see where this goes. This is a fresh concept from a very different type of director. That's not to say that we're going to get a dark movie. I don't know. I mean, look at the Russo bros, right? What was their feature film debut? An Owen Wilson movie called You, Me, and Dupree, and it was bad. But they went over to Community. They cut their chops on Community with some of the better episodes in season 1 and season 2. And then they went on and they made Winter Soldier in 2014. And literally the rest is history. 2 of the highest grossing films of all time are movies that they have made. They are competing against James Cameron, right? So, I mean, look, you wouldn't think that based upon their initial track record, they'd be able to pull it off, but they did. They pulled it off. So maybe this guy can pull it off too. I mean, something clearly happened with S.J. Clarkson that just didn't work. And it's possible that because they didn't mention Chris Hemsworth being in this movie, that time travel plot line it died. And it probably died when Viacom and CBS merged, which therefore brought Star Trek back home. Because CBS owns the rights, Paramount no longer has to license the right. They're all under the same umbrella. And the Kelvin timeline can be merged with the Prime timeline, or, and this is just my speculation, officially take over as the timeline. Because if they're doing this movie with JJ producing and they're doing the Tarantino movie with JJ producing, we're still in the Kelvin timeline. And I don't think that's ever going to change. This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo.